this lesson, we're going to try and help you to control inflammation in your body using your food, movement, and lifestyle habits. So current research at the moment is putting most chronic diseases down as a root cause from uncontrolled inflammation. When I talk about inflammation, most people think of like achy joints, sore knees, spine, hips. But you got to think of it as more broad. It's broader. So, like if you think of heart disease, that's linked back to inflammation. If you think of dementia, that's linked back to inflammation in the brain. IBD, so inflammatory bowel disease, that's inflammation in your bowel. If you've got any tendonitis like tennis elbow, that's inflammation of the tendon. So the list keeps on going, but I just don't want you ever to think of inflammation as just something that affects your joints. If you have a headache, there can be inflammation there as well. It's just to link inflammation with different conditions in the body and see how you can use food, movement, and lifestyle choices to improve that inflammation, to decrease that inflammation, to then hence decrease your pain levels. So food, movement, and lifestyle choices along with stress have huge consequences when it comes to inflammation. So what is inflammation? So in Latin, to set on fire is itis. So if you have inflammation in your colon, colitis, so it's colonitis, and this is inflammation of your large intestine. If you have tendonitis, this is your tendon is set on fire, so tendonitis. So you always get that itis at the end, that's just going to mean inflammation. So your inflammatory response is part of your immune system. And if the immune system comes across something that's aggravating the body, it's going to, like on your skin, your joints, your muscle, the lining of your gut, it's going to look to address this aggravation. And this is when your inflammatory response turns on. So your body sees a problem and it turns on your inflammatory response to help deal with that problem and hopefully reduce and remove that problem. The problem happens when inflammation is unable to turn off, okay? And the immune system becomes overstretched from dealing with this day-to-day inflammation. And the problems really occur when the body turns on itself. So if the body finds something that's aggravated, but it's its own, the body's dealing with it, and then the body can't differentiate between something foreign and something that it's itself. So what tends to happen then is the body turns on itself and the immune system is turned on in reaction to its own system. And this can lead to tissue damage. And then this can lead to the development of an autoimmune disorder. So when uncontrolled inflammation is turned on and the exposure to the common cold, bacteria or virus, the immune system is then spread thin because it's dealing with the autoimmune disease and then it's also going to be dealing with this common cold, bacteria, the virus. The goal I want for you to try and understand is that I want you to try and keep inflammation to a minimum so that when your immune system is needed to, in any emergency situation, it can do its job and it's not overloaded. So you're just always looking to not overload your immune system. So keep inflammation low and so then your body can deal with whatever's being fired at it daily. So how can you tell if you have a lot of inflammation going on in the body? There's a couple of different ways, questionnaire, and then you can get a blood test as well. So do you use non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs to relieve pain? So do you use aspirin to relieve pain in your body? Do you feel sleepy when sitting up? Do you suffer from headaches? Do you suffer from abdominal pain with bloating? Are your joints painful and stiff? Do you suffer from acne or skin issues? Is your skin inflamed? Have you been diagnosed with IBD or IBS, so irritable bowel disease or irritable bowel syndrome? Have you been on a low-fat diet for an extended period of time? So what does inflammation look like to you? So you can have red, aggravated skin. This is going to be acne or a rash. You can have bloating in the gut, abdominal pain, fever, joint pain known as arthritis, loss of function in a joint, as in there's so much pain you don't want to use that joint. You're limping. You're not putting your full weight through that joint or on your wrist. You've got chest pain, headaches, pain anywhere in the body, or you're suffering from tendonitis. So there's different types of inflammation. So the body's always looking to function optimally, okay? And then the immune system will flag up to say something's not right here, turn on the immune response and try and clean up that area. If the problem persists, that inflammatory response stays on, and this can develop in something more sinister. So you're always looking to support the immune system and turn off inflammation. Okay? If it turns into something more sinister, it can come into a chronic disease, an autoimmune disorder. That's what we're looking to avoid. Okay, so you got your short-term acute inflammation. This is like when you twist over on your ankle. You're out for a walk, you don't see the curb, you trip over, you just snap your ankle. Okay, this pain is short-lived. It's there to help. So the inflammation sets in to stop you. So you're going to lose your loss of function in that joint. So you're not going to want to walk on it. It's going to swell. It's going to be painful. It's going to be red. And this is just to stop you using that joint until it heals. Okay. Then you've got your long-term chronic inflammation. And this is when your inflammation doesn't turn off. So you injure your ankle. You keep on walking on it. You don't rest up, you go to work, you keep on walking on it, and then that ankle gets angrier and angrier, and it can't actually get better. So that tissue just stays damaged, okay? With chronic long-term inflammation in your gut, in your joints, this can lead to degrading of the tissue, and this can lead to disease. This can be done with an aggravating food that ends up in your digestive system day after day. So if you have a protein or a food that your body is not happy with going through your system every day, your body has to deal with that, and it can turn on the inflammatory response. Okay? If you keep presenting your digestive system with this food over time, it's going to damage the tissues, and this can lead to chronic disease. Rancid fat and sugars can damage your circulatory system, so your arteries. Okay, and this can turn the inflammatory response on and lead to blockages within the circulatory system, so your blood system. Stress response stays turned on due to a work situation or traumatic event, your living arrangements, whatever mental stress is going on, and this can leave your body and mind feeling that you're stressed all the time. So you're in your perceived stressful situation. And with the stress response, it can stay turned on, and this can lead to chronic inflammation as well, because your body's not actually ever turning off and resting. Tendinitis is a repetitive use strain, usually within a joint. So you're not in a natural position and there's just wear and tear on that joint, or you're doing a new exercise you've never done before, and your arm's like, hey, I've never done this before. There's just constant wear and tear on the joint. It's demanding on the tissues. And the body will, again, put up that flag and be like, I'm not happy, and become inflamed. So the short-term inflammation, think of it like a Pac-Man, okay? So he just eats up any damaged tissue. So you go over on your ankle, inflammatory white blood cells are sent down, blood flow increases, it swells, there's heat, there's pain. The Pac-Man goes down, the white blood cells goes down, and he eats anything that's aggravated. Okay, but the problem is that he can also eat up healthy tissue. And then that's going to take you longer for you to heal. Okay, so that's why they say rest, ice, compression, elevation. And Pac-Man tend to stay active in the presence of an allergen. So let's say for some people, gluten would be an allergen. So if you're eating gluten every day, that Pac-Man will stay active. Sugar produces AGEs, advanced glycation end products, and these, when you eat sugar, and it can affect the protein and fat structures, okay, and create AGEs. This is all in the sugar lesson, and they will bind to your protein and fat molecules, and your Pac-Man are going to work on that. Stress will also keep your Pac-Man present, and it's just any short-term Pac-Man activity is going to damage surrounding tissues, and that's what we're looking to limit, because you want to keep all your tissue as healthy as possible. So chronic inflammation, examples of chronic inflammation would be cancer, arthritis, Alzheimer's, neurological diseases, cardiovascular disease, autoimmune diseases, pulmonary diseases, so lungs, and then your diabetes type 2. So how can you tell if your body's inflamed? So the best way to tell if your body's inflamed is to get a blood test, and it is a C-reactive protein. That's the blood test you're looking for. So C-reactive protein is a protein that's made in the liver, and when your inflammatory levels are high, your C-reactive protein levels is going to be high, okay? And this can be caused by an acute condition or a chronic condition. If you have an infection, your C-reactive protein levels are going to go up. If you have arthritis, they should be up because you're inflamed constantly. Cancer, autoimmune diseases, these guys are all going to present as higher C-reactive protein. Okay. So there are many studies that report the correlation between inflammation and cardiovascular disease, stroke, and now depression. So one test to get done is your C-reactive protein, and it gives you an indication of where your health status is and if there's uncontrolled inflammation in your body. So the test is done by a blood test, and the ranges are here. So 0 to 5 is normal, 5 plus is like chronic disease, maybe a cardiovascular disease. Your target is 1 or lower. That's where you want to be living. Super easy test. I get mine done by letsgetchecked.com or .ie. They send you the kit. You do a little blood sample, send it back, and then a couple of weeks later you get the results online. Super easy, and they give you a whole protocol if it's up too high or too low. So how and why can inflammation occur in your body? This is all down to your food, movement, and lifestyle habits. So eating too little of the foods that decrease inflammation, which we'll talk about, and eating highly processed vegetable oils. This can damage your circulatory system. Okay? Eating foods that irritate the lining of your digestive system, so this would be your gut. These can promote inflammation, and they can damage your gut, causing your immune system to turn on, inflammation's on. Damage for this can be tested by an LPS. You're looking for LPS molecules. Again, we'll talk about that. Eating a diet, point 3 is all about leaky gut or semi-permeable membrane in the gut. So we'll talk about leaky gut as well, but this is what we're trying to control. Eating a diet that's high in sugar. This creates AGEs, which we spoke about. So sugar will attach to protein and fat molecules, change the shape of them, and the body doesn't really know how to deal with them. And then this can lead to inflammation because the body's like, what is this? How do I fix it? What's going on? Eating foods that have been exposed to toxins that promote the production of free radicals or damage. So reactive oxygen species is created when we eat toxic foods or foods that are unnatural. So if you're eating a lot of refined vegetable oils, trans fats, the body just doesn't know what to do with it. If you're eating a lot of sugar, in general, poor digestive habits, so leading to a lack of nutrients available in your body. Poor stress management, so cortisol being used to manage stress and not to turn off inflammation. Cortisol is the hormone produced by your adrenal glands, and it's got different roles in the body. So cortisol is a hormone that wakes you up in the morning. We need it. It is released up until about 8 a.m. and it's to actually wake you up in the morning, to stimulate you to get out of bed, to move, to do what we need to do. But it's also used for us to deal with stress, but it's also used for us to turn off inflammation. And the problem is that if you are stressed more than you're not, your cortisol isn't going to be used to turn off inflammation, but it's going to be used to manage that stress. Poor sleep habits, because you've got inadequate recovery. Your body isn't able to deal and relax and recover from your daily living activities. And inactivity in general, sedentary life, is going to create inflammation in your body. So pain and prostaglandins. So prostaglandins are how our body deals with inflammation. So you've got 3 different prostaglandins. I'm going to call them PG1, PG2, and PG3. Okay, they're made from essential fatty acids, which are your omega-3s and omega-6s. We'll talk about that again, but it's going to be in the fat lesson, it's going to be in this lesson. Essential fatty acids are fats that you cannot make in the body, you have to consume them. So PG1 promotes inflammation or decreases inflammation. PG2 promotes inflammation. So if you trip over on that ankle, you're going to need inflammation. PG2 gets to work. And then PG3 decreases inflammation. So the quality of the foods that you eat impact your PG1, PG2, and PG3.